Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Food for Thought Friday. I am your host, Allie Tomlinson. We are very thankful that you are here with us today, and we have some very special guests from all over the nation. So we're excited to bring their journeys here to Arkansas with us and help create strong advocacy tools for you. So we have Trista Heffner here, Courtney Mills, and Lindsey. Tell me how to say your last name.
Althaus.
Thank
ALT.
you so much.
No problem. We get people calling us Outhouse. It's fine.
So at that point, you just answer to anything, right?
Yeah,
like
pretty
I
much.
totally understand. I understand. So here at Community of Champions, I want to remind all of our viewers and you guys, probably because you may not be familiar with Community of Champions, exactly what we do. So we have a mission to turn every single person in our state into an advocate. So we really want to educate, inspire, and empower peer advocates, self-advocates, and state leaders to really understand the importance behind advocacy and how it brings our communities closer together, really just growing our state to its maximum potential. And we really think that we can do this by giving people the tools to become advocates. And we know that you three have been on an advocacy journey. And this is taking place in your everyday lives. And really, you guys are taking action to really create the change that you want to see. And so we wanted to dig in to each of your advocacy journeys. That way, everyday people can see that they can be advocates too. They don't have to have education behind it. It doesn't have to have special training. They can take who they are and where they are right now and start creating the change that they need either for themselves or the people that they love. And so I really want to dig in, if that's okay, and really just go down the road and see what your story or how it began, if that's okay. And I'm just going to start with the pictures that I have on my screen. And Trista, that's all right if I just kind of call you out and sure. you just dig in. Like let me know, like, how did you get in to the disability advocacy journey?
It really started with my son being diagnosed with autism. And that really sparked us to, it showed us how little we knew at the time when he was diagnosed. And we knew that a lot of other people must be in the same boat that we were when he was diagnosed, that we didn't know nearly as much as we'd like to know. And we dove in to learn as much as we could and wanted to share everything that we've learned with everybody else, to help anybody that comes after us in this journey to be able to advocate for their child or anybody else in their lives, get the services that they deserve or the equipment that they deserve or anything that they might need to help them be successful in their everyday lives.
And tell me this, I would really just like to know, like, how long have you been doing this?
Just over 2 years.
Okay. So Courtney, give us a little background on you. And I do want to say that Courtney is here. She is an advocate within Community of Champions. She really helps us along the way. We really appreciate her. And she is actually the one that's brought you guys all together. So I want to give a little shout out and a little thank you to her for getting you guys here with us today. So I'm appreciative of that.
You're welcome. Well, we started with early intervention with Graham when he was about in between like 15, 18 months old. But I always kind of thought that he was on the spectrum because he would do this with his hands and it wasn't normal to me. So we started on earlier intervention. We got him into a developmental preschool and all of that. He was diagnosed at age 2, and I had started going to a different local organization had monthly meetings here that I would go to. And I remember the first one I went to, I cried because it was about Medicaid. And I was like, what am I getting myself into? I was like, am I not prepared for this? Well, what do I need to be doing? And it was kind of through there that I was like, I don't want another parent to ever have to feel like I feel right now and feel so lost. We got that diagnosis and got handed that paperwork. And I came home, and the next day I went through all of it. And I just looked at my husband. I was like, now what? Now what do I do? And that's when I looked to the community, to different organizations, and just started from there, on learning and growing so I could help my son and be able to help others.
And Courtney, I want to just point out one thing that you said. You said that that wasn't normal to you. And isn't it funny, through education, how you realize that something that wasn't normal to you because you weren't educated is such the norm now, and that you realize that autism, disability is such a natural part of the human existence,
Yeah.
that everything that a person does, as long as they're not hurting someone else, is normal. Isn't it wonderful to have to grow in that journey that you're in, that personal journey?
Yes. I mean, with Graham's vocal stems, I love it. I can't get enough of his vocal stems and his arm flapping. I mean, that's Graham. And I love seeing him be that happy and showing it and sharing it. I don't think there's any like pictures we have of him. There's not one photo session we've done with him where he's not got an arm flap in some picture. And I love it because I'm like, that's him. That's my son. Yeah.
I love it. I love the growth from where you've started. And like, just because I know you as a person and I know you as an advocate and as a mother, I know that there has been growth there. And I love the growth, and I love the education, because we can never be too intelligent to learn something new. Like, what a disservice it would be to our own children and the people that we surround ourselves with if we thought we knew everything about our child's diagnosis. And so I love that. I love the growth that I've seen you have and that you've helped others have. And so I think it's truly beautiful.
Thank you.
Lindsey, tell me a little bit about your story.
Our story started when Whitman was born. He was in the NICU for a few weeks, so our advocating started then. And then we always knew that there was something just a little bit off about him, a little different. And we could never really get an answer because everybody umbrellaed it as his prematurity. Well, he was premature. Well, because of his immunodeficiencies, you guys didn't get him in play groups. And because of this, he's not expanding. And it was just really hard. I remember we were late bloomers. We got into an autism preschool. And one of the moms was like, I got our diagnosis at 2.5. What about you? And I was like, 4, 3.5 or 4. And they kind of just like looked at me, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I feel great. So basically, we've been advocating for him from day one, and it's just become a second nature, ride a bike type of thing. And in the beginning, you feel so clueless. And so like, no matter what move you make, it feels like a life or death decision. Like, if he doesn't get into this specific therapy, what's his future going to look like? And we had a lot of issues. We have decent insurance, but they consider autism mental health. So it's always an uphill battle because
Tell us what state you're
not...
from. I'm sorry. Tell us what state you're from.
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay.
Yep. And it's always just an uphill battle of like like what is mental health compared to like he has physical delays. Well, that's not autism, that's prematurity. So it's always just like trying to find the balance and working for that type of like advocacy so he can have a better life. And I do it because I don't want the next family to feel the way that we have felt, to be turned away from ABA, because ABA is mental health, when it's not. Like, women could have really benefited from it, but never qualified because of our insurance. And we've had lawyers and insurance brokers and sat in tiny rooms of meetings. My husband's HR person will not make eye contact with me at Christmas parties. Like, they like walk the other way just from like the meetings and stuff. So it's just uphill advocacy.
Definitely uphill advocacy, 100%. And it's really default advocacy, you know. you didn't have a choice to advocate for a lot of the stuff that you were talking about. You know, if you wanted your child to be able to have this or do this or receive these services, you had to fight for them. And so a lot of people don't know that they're an advocate when they've been advocating for the person that they love or for themselves this whole time. And so, you know, it was advocacy without a choice for survival. And my son also received a very late diagnosis. So he was 5. It was just a month before he started kindergarten. Lindsey, he's autistic. And so I definitely know how you feel with those. Oh, why were you not taking care of your child before that day?
Yeah, it's like that like gut wrenching feeling of like, you have no idea what I have been through, lady. Like,
I'm a good mom, I promise.
yeah, I wasn't naive to this, lady. Come on.
I had to fight Graham's early diagnosis. Like, we started it, we did the early intervention, and then they were like, okay, yeah, we need to evaluate for autism. And they referred and they sent us to the Dennis Development Center here in Arkansas. And they said, oh, we don't evaluate under 3 years of age. And so I was like, so you're telling me early intervention is best, but now you don't want to evaluate my son because he's too young? That made no sense to me.
We definitely have a lot of state laws that have their hand in making it hard for that.
So we found growth and development through Arkansas Children's. And what's funny is that the doctors that work in the growth and development clinic, and they're only there on Wednesdays, they come from the Dennis Development Center over to growth and development. But that's how we got in, and we got his evaluation through that department. So yeah, and then there was others at the preschool that Graham goes to that they were trying to do the same thing. That one of them was even in my son's class, and I was like, you do not have to wait till he's 3.
David wasn't diagnosed.
There. I'm sorry, Trista, go right ahead.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. David wasn't diagnosed until 5 either, because his was pushed off as a speech disorder for the longest time. He went through birth to 3, early intervention under a speech diagnosis and a speech delay. And we didn't get an official autism diagnosis until 5 as well.
So we talked about that default advocacy. I want to ask you all about that aha moment, that moment where you knew that it wasn't enough just to listen to the specialist. It wasn't enough to just take the advice from others. It was going to have to be you. It was going to have to be your family. You were going to have to put in the extra work. You were going to have to take action. And you said it was an uphill advocacy battle sometimes, or most of the time, depending on the person and the situation. I feel like every single person has that aha moment that they know that it has to be them. It has to. It cannot be other people doing it for you. IEP meetings where you understand that you cannot just listen to what's being told to you. You have to be actively involved. A doctor's appointment that you may hear that they're not listening to you. You have to be the one, that's taking charge and being like, this is what we need, because you're not seeing and you're not taking this taking this to heart when I'm telling you. So give me those aha moments that you knew that you were going to have to, take action. Trista, you want to start?
Sure. As we were looking into getting David further diagnosed or evaluated for an autism diagnosis, I had taken on a position to become a behavioral therapist at an ABA company in our area. And I was speaking with the mom of the child that I was working with at the time. And this was prior to his diagnosis and prior to his evaluation starting. But she was talking about all of the wait lists and the fights and all of the different things that they don't tell you that you kind of have to either know from someone else or from just doing your own research. You know, they don't offer all of this information. You don't get a diagnosis and they don't hand you a packet with a checklist of everything, of every person to contact, of all of the resources that are available to you. And finding that out from her and finding out of what a struggle it was for them was kind of my eye-opener moment, that I was ready to go into this full force, and I was ready to go in and fight for not only my child but for everybody else, to share, because she kind of she showed me what she experienced and all the things that she had to overcome just to get a few services for her son. And it was really eye-opening to me on how hard it was to do those things. And I wanted to be able to share those with others. So that was really my moment to my motivation to go into this evaluation and this diagnosis, that I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I wasn't going to just tell them that, okay, you're just going to have to sit back and wait until it's your turn. I was going to go in there ready to fight, ready to help whoever I can and help push things along and call and make all of the calls and those types of things to help not only my son, but anybody that can benefit from any of those actions.
That's wonderful. And it's really a pass the torch. So you aren't just doing it for you. And I know that a lot of people end up having, we end up doing that. So, you're not just clearing a path for yourself and your family, but you were doing that for others too. So that was great. Courtney, what was your aha moment?
My aha moment was a couple of years ago. There was an incident at our local school with a 5-year-old boy who was autistic, and he was spanked by his teacher. And at that moment, and getting to know the mother and hearing her story and hearing how, she didn't have anybody with her to go into an IEP meeting and fight for what she needed for her son. And she kind of felt like she had to settle for what they were offering her. I knew at that moment, especially with my son at the time being nonverbal, like no words whatsoever, that was my moment where I was like, I need to learn. And I started doing everything I could to learn, to grow, to help my son, to help others, because we don't really have that in our area where you have somebody that can go and sit with you at the IEP meetings or can meet with you and discuss things of what do you need for your child, as they go into an education setting. And it just lit me on fire. Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely, I feel like I'm seeing a common thread here. And so, Lindsay, let's hear what you've got.
My aha moment was, I remember walking into a room when, I think it was a Thursday, and with occupational therapists and speech therapists were in there. They were also his occupational and speech for preschool. And they said that he was having a major regression and they couldn't put their finger on it. And out of nowhere, like I don't even know where it came from. I was like, I think he's having seizures. And they kind of gave me this look, and the occupational therapist was like, I don't think it's that. I think it's motor planning, and like laughed. And the speech therapist looked at me and she was like, you're going to walk upstairs. Our developmental pediatrician, because it's the most convenient thing when it was in preschool, our developmental pediatrician was right next door to his preschool. So they talked to each other. They made plans. It was awesome. It was the greatest 2 years that you never had to worry about. Like, I sat back and just let life happen. Anyway, so you're going to walk upstairs while I do speech, and you're going to get referrals for a neurologist. She's like, I think he's having seizures too. And so then it was just like advocating to prove that we had seizures. And it took 3 hospitalizations, one where he got stitches because he jumped off the bed and hit something, and then we couldn't have the testing done. He had to be completely intubated for an MRI. Like, it was just this nightmare of tests. And they found out he was having seizures. And so we were able to like make a plan, but it was the people who were like, I think it's just motor planning. And my mom gut was telling me it wasn't motor planning, it was something more serious. And so it was advocating at that angle and bringing that into like the I don't ever want parents to feel like that. So whatever they like, when somebody says something to me, I'm like, that could be it. It could be it. Like, I'm not going to tell you no, because I've been that mom. I've sat there in a genetics office saying, I think it's this. And them going, I don't think, but we'll do the blood work. But I don't think it's that. So
definitely a common theme amongst all three of you. And then I'm sure a lot of people, you know what I mean? A lot of people that are in this same journey or on this same journey with us all, that we've been in a certain situation feeling like our backs are up against a wall. And then we're like, we don't want to be here. We don't want our children to be here. We don't want another self-advocate to be here. And we don't want another parent to be here. And so if we can clear a path and make a place that has more equality, more equity, more justice for our child, we are doing that for everyone. So that place is not just a place for our child to be, for our loved one to be, for us to be. That's a place for everyone. So I think that that's really important. And tell me now, do all three of you, do you write blogs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's something that's also consistent. Look at you go. Just straight across the board. Tell me the reason for writing blogs. Is that a particular way that you've chosen to stay active within the advocacy movement? Is that a way that you have chosen to reach out to other parents, share your resources? You know, why blogging? What is it for blogging for you? Whoever wants to start. And Trista, if you want to start first, we can just keep doing our roll call if you want to.
Sure. A couple different reasons that it was important to me to start. One was I had seen a couple of blogs when we were first starting out that had helped me know that I wasn't alone in this journey. And I thought that if they helped me, that, you know, sharing our story could help someone else. It was also important to me because it was a way for us to share our story with family and friends that were not part of our daily lives. We have family and friends that are all over the country, even more specifically, family that don't know much about autism and have told me that they don't understand a lot about autism and that they have learned a lot about why we do things the way that we do, why my son does things the way that he does, and they've learned a lot about autism in general, and that they've also recognized things now that they've seen out in public, and they've understood more and have had some more compassion to just general public and what they've seen in public, just because of what they've learned from knowing what we go through in our daily lives and how they didn't know some of those things before. And so it was just a learning curve for a lot of people when it's not in your everyday life, like it wasn't for us beforehand. A lot of people don't know a lot of the aspects of it. It's a lot of times it gets grouped into one set of characteristics, and not everybody knows all of the different things that can go along with it. And so it was just a way to share our story, not only for our family and friends to keep up on how things are going with us, but also to teach others that don't know a whole lot about autism.
I really like that. You know, you hear a lot about sharing your story to empower other parents, making sure, just like we talked about, making sure that other parents don't have to go through what you've gone through. You know, they can skip over those hardships because you've already, you know, turned that rock over and found that answer. But I think it's really important to understand that, you know, you may only go to see grandparents one time a year. and your child should be able to enjoy that time, and it should not have to bring struggles to that child just because they have autism, have a disability of, any kind, whether it's cerebral palsy, whether, whatever it may be. And so if you're sharing, you're actively sharing their story and they're soaking it in, they may be prepared. It may be, so much information that, that they're not gonna retain on one phone call when you're trying to prep them before Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I think, you really opened my eyes to another aspect of that. So thank you so much. Courtney, what about you?
I had as well seen other blogs and blogs, and I kind of have further background with my brother is autistic. And my brother wasn't diagnosed until he was almost 13. It took my mom that long to get him diagnosed. They just kept saying it was ADHD, kept changing his meds. And my mom didn't have anyone to help her. She didn't know where to go. She didn't know how to get help. She didn't know what was out there for him to help him, and so here I was going through this, and I didn't want another parent going through what we had gone through and feeling so alone, like, now what do I do? And I had tried joining the MOPS program here where we live, and I found out very quickly I feel like I didn't fit in because my child had autism and functioned differently than their children. And so, like, they would have play dates and we'd go to them, but I couldn't go sit with the moms, while their kids played at the park. My son didn't play. All he wanted to do was run. And so I was constantly having to chase them down. But it was through fellow friends actually that gave me the courage to finally just start a blog. And it was through that I do videos and stuff too. But I wanted to share, if I could just reach one person and let them know they're not alone, and I've been through it, and if I can offer any help, if it's somebody in our state, I have more resources. But I have friends all over now that I can reach out to for others who don't live in my state and be like, hey, I have this mom or I have this family that they're looking for help for their child, and can you help me give them some resources to help them? And that was my biggest thing, is just letting them know that they're not alone. And it was kind of an outsource for me because nobody in my family understood. They didn't get it except for my mom. My mom was the only one that even partially understood what I was going through. And so, it's kind of an outlet for, I could explain, I could write down in words, what was going on. And if fellow moms, I get it, we're going through similar, we've been there, and, they can offer suggestions. It may work for your child, it may not, because everyone is different. Everybody on the spectrum is different. No one's the same. And so what works for one person may not work for another, but they're willing to help. And I think that's the greatest thing I've gotten out of starting the blog. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I really love how you brought your mom into that, knowing that she had been through it. So she really understood. And so she was the only one in your life that you could really bring into that, because she did. And hopefully through your blog, you can educate the ones around you enough so they can be, for the falling person, they can be those people for them too, instead of just you. You know what I mean? Because you've lived that life. Hopefully through your education, they will be able to be those individuals that can be there for them simply through education. So thank you so much. Lindsey, what about you? What about, your advocacy through blogging?
My advocacy through blogging has kind of taken different turns. I started blogging because I loved a good sale, and I wanted everybody else to love a good sale. And it still sounds weird saying I became an influencer with Like to Know It and had all these big dreams. And then it kind of took a different turn where I read about advocacy. And just because of those steps with advocacy, I've been able to do some background stuff for people, social media wise. I'm not I don't like standing in front of a mirror and taking a picture of myself. Like, I'm just not that type of person. So writing has become kind of an outlet, and then like helping people on the back, like in the background, has been fun because I like doing like the analytics stuff. And then it is also opened, I've been able to meet a friend who lives in the state of Ohio, and we've like kind of started our own advocacy thing where we are meeting with senators and state reps and just making a lot of noise and trying to better the state of Ohio. So nobody ever has to feel the way she or I have felt. We met with a state representative yesterday, and none of this would have like been possible if I wouldn't have started blogging. So it's been a crazy, fun adventure of sorts. So that's, I've been able to take the blog for advocacy. So
I love it. I love that. So tell us a little bit about what you met with your senators and state reps about. Like, let us know.
We are trying to talk and start. The state of Ohio is one of 5 states that doesn't have partners in policy making set up. So we are trying to start partners in policy making for the state of Ohio as like a stepping stone into being able to help parents like navigate insurance. There's a super sweet mom that lives like 25 minutes away from me, and she was telling me her story yesterday, and I was like, that, like, in the state of Ohio, that's unacceptable. Like, that is not how it needs to be. So it got added to the list for the next time we talk to the state representative. That we talked to was amazing. The woman that was on the call with said that her state representative hadn't got back with her, and he called him like right there in the middle of the meeting. He's like, I'll call him. And he's like, hi, I've got one of your constituents. She was a former student of yours. She says that she can't get a hold of you. And like the guy was like stumbling. It was amazing. He's like, well, and like she and I were like sitting there on this Zoom, like with our eyes wide, like, what is happening? So
Courtney, I think, was laughing at me. Partners in policy is my jam. She's like, here we go.
awesome.
I'm
gonna be
so
in touch
happy
with
you
now,
shared
Allie.
that, Lindsey, because I was like, I wanted to tell Allie like before we started, but I was like, hopefully she'll talk about it in the Zoom, because Allie will be like,
I asked Amanda if it was okay because I didn't know like what I'm allowed to tell and what I'm not. And I'm like one of those people who like I just word vomit. So then like all of a sudden people are hearing about my mom's like dog, and they're like, I'm not even sure how I got there. So I like messaged her and was like, is it okay if I bring up like everything? And she like had messaged and said that we'd messaged each other at the same time, and she's like, be sure to bring up what we're doing. So yeah, we're making stepping stones. And even like the state representative yesterday said that he liked the idea, if it doesn't turn into anything, which we think it will turn into something, he was going to remember Amanda and I so we could go into legislation for special needs. Like he felt like we would be two very competent people to be able to walk into a council meeting and tell our stories and talk. My son had been sent home yesterday, and the representative wanted to talk to him. He's like, can I see him? Can I talk to him? I want to know like what kind of family you guys are, like things like that, which was, I've never had that. Like the other meetings we've sat in, it's been with aides, and they're like, okay, we'll let them know. And you're just like, all right, thanks. This guy like had he was amazing. Like a laundry list of things we needed to do and advocate for, and gave us starting points and people to call. But yeah, so I will definitely be in touch with you, Allie, so we can get this started in Ohio.
That sounds great. Look, Courtney's still laughing. She's like, here we go.
Yeah.
We're done, Trista.
no,
Log
and
off.
Allie even knows this. I have a list of things. Like I've messaged her. I was like, okay, what do we need to do? I want this here in Arkansas as well. Like, let's get this going. But I know I have so much to learn about that side of things to get the ball rolling in that.
Yeah, it was a lot. My grandpa, like if you're ever advocating, my papa and my uncle Gene ran a car company, and growing up, like they always said to us, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so I have like, that is the forefront of my advocating. Like it isn't what I know. I know nothing. I am completely clueless on a lot of things. But if I know somebody and I can call them, and
Absolutely.
and that's basically what our state representative told us yesterday. Like, hey, I like your idea, but you gotta think, I need a budget. I need people, you need to call universities and see if the universities will pick this up and use it as a program. And so it was very eye-opening and awesome. Like, he could have literally said, well, give me a budget and I'll be back with you. But then he had names and he's like, I like this idea so much. I need you to reach out to this person, this person, this person, this person. So like, he gave us, I mean, we were on the call. Normally, like, calls with representatives last 15 minutes to a half hour at the max. And he was on with us for almost an hour, telling us where we needed to go, what we needed to do. At the end of it, I was like, I'm really glad I voted for you. I just want to say that. Like,
You haven't disappointed me yet.
I know, like, because normally you get an aid. So like, Amanda and I was in a graphic tee and a cardigan with like bedhead, and because I thought it was going to be this aid, and all of a sudden I like looked at Amanda and was like, it's the real deal. And she's like, no. And I was like, yeah. And so then we were like deep breaths, and then we took and it was amazing. Like, I mean, he's obviously a winner because he called out Amanda's rep. So
It's awesome.
it was amazing. It was a really good call. So, but yeah,
Really
that's our,
excited for you. That's really
thank you.
great.
That's our idea. Just like getting stepping stones, because we feel like in Ohio, everything's a little bit delayed when it comes to things being covered. And I just like, I don't think it's acceptable. Like, I don't think that parents need to file for bankruptcy to pay for their kids' therapy. Like, that's heartbreaking to me.
Courtney and I know nothing about that here in Arkansas. We don't know. Parents don't talk about that at all. So I don't know about you, Trista, how that works where you are.
She's in Wisconsin.
Since you're talking about, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I want to ask you guys, how important are other parents to you? How important is the coalition of parents and bringing those parents together and really building a united front and having those people? I know you talked about the blogs and educating other parents and not making them go down the same road that you've been on when it wasn't the right one. But how important is building a coalition of parents who are willing to do something? So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lindsey.
Oh, sorry. I think it's so important. I think that that's like the top notch of it, because it's the most, I don't know if Trista and Courtney feel the same way. It's the most lonely experience, like trying to juggle it and figure it out. And you just want one person to say, I kind of get it. Not even like I absolutely get it. I've been in your shoes, but like, I kind of get it, and like have their example. I think that starting a coalition of parents to advocate and to fight and to raise our voices is like the most important thing, because one person can get a little done. A whole coalition of people can change the world.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. To me, I feel like the more people who, the more parents that join in together and do the parent advocacy, it brings more, awareness and acceptance for our kids, for self-advocates, for anyone, anyone with disability. And I think, it's like I was, I told you about the story a couple years ago, the local story with the school district, and they actually did kind of a reprise of it yesterday, with other stories that have happened here in Arkansas. And, they went to, our state legislative and asked them about this. And most of them were like, it wasn't even on their radar. They didn't even know about it. And I'm like, how can you not realize this stuff is happening in your state? How do you let it just, just sweep it away? Like, how do you not bring recognition to this? And so I feel like the more parents that get on board together and bring, acceptance for this, the better chances of those with disabilities will have to be able to live their life, to live their life without having to feel like they have to hide under a rock. you know, 'cause they shouldn't have to do that.
Trista, what about you in Wisconsin?
I think parents together for us has been the best tool that we've had in accessing things, because like I mentioned earlier, when we got the diagnosis, we weren't handed a packet of who to contact, where to go, you know, what to do next. It was, you know, he needs speech, he needs therapy, he needs this. But as far as anything else, there's no roadmap, there's no guidance beyond that. You're just kind of released and left to stare into space if you have no idea. So having other parents that have gone through this before, that have some you know, knowledge that can help you is invaluable.
Definitely. I think it's also important for our parents to kind of adapt and learn from the adults with disabilities. You know, they have told us, you know, this is what we need from you. And we need you to change things up and shake it up, because we know what helped us and we know what's hurt us, whether it's, you know, the language that we're using, whether it's the symbols, whether it's, you know, whatever it is. And they're reaching out to us because they know that they're the, you know, parents are the first ones that are in the door with their children, before they pass the torch of, you know, that advocacy torch. And I think it's really important for us to listen to them. And I think it's also important for parent advocates who are, you know, have a little seniority on them, to make sure that the younger advocates that are coming into the game, you know, those default advocates before they even know they're doing it, to really ensure that they know if they haven't lost a child, that what they're actually sad about is the world right now. They're not actually sad about their child. And when we're talking about that we, especially with us, because we're on social media all the time, and everything that we're putting out, you know, it's going to be out there forever. Our child's going to read it. That when we talk about that loneliness, when we talk about those fears, when we talk about the things that we gave up, our child never made us do those things. Our child did not cause that loneliness. You know what I mean? Our child did not cause the fear. It was the world. It was the access. It was the lack of support. It was the other people who did not understand. It was the other people who created these barriers. Our child was never those things. A person with a disability never caused these things. It was everything else that stood in the way of the peace that we should have been allowed. You know, the actual parenthood, the motherhood, the fatherhood, you know, the guardianship aspect, the role, whatever we played, we should have been able to have that, instead of taking on the role of a warrior, you know, throughout their entire life. So I think it's important, especially for us, to remember as parents, you know, we're mothers here, but to remember that we make sure to tell these younger advocates who are coming into these roles that we have to be careful what we say, because our children look up to us, and we're training younger advocates. They're looking to us for the things that we're saying, and we tell them what's okay and what's not. So we want to make sure that we're letting them know that it's never our child who is doing that. It's only the world. So that parent coalition that we're all in together, we want to make sure that we're sending that message far and wide, because we never want our children to grow up and think, you know, I took so much away from my mom, or I took so much away from, you know, my sister, my brother, my aunt, my best friend, whatever it may be, because they didn't. It was the lack of services. It was the lack of support. It was the lack of acceptance, inclusion, equality, equity, whatever it may have been. So I think that you're right, that coalition is so important, and it can create change, but we want to build it on solid foundation that can grow us all to be the best that we can be. I want to ask you this, and of course, you know where I stand, because I got on my soapbox for a minute, and I'm so sorry, But how important do you guys feel it is to let your children see you be advocates? Because obviously they are going to have to advocate for themselves, or that's what we hope here at Community Champions. We hope that you are training your children to be advocates, or you're going to pass that torch. So how important do you think it is for them to see you advocating for them, advocating for others? And do you feel like you are going to pass the torch to them and be there, for whatever they need, but you're still training them to speak up, whether it's for picking out their own shirt that they want to wear, picking out their food, that dignity and choice and saying what they need. Trista, I'll let you go first.
I think it's very important, and I've noticed it not only that we encourage it in my son, but I've also noticed a huge change in my daughter since my son's diagnosis, and the change in the things that we've had to advocate for. Not only the things that we've had to advocate for him, but just her stance and her view on others, advocating for what's right, advocating for anybody. I've seen a huge change in her personality since this has come into our lives, and it's been really beautiful. I think it's been great. So it's been very important for not only for our son to see, us fighting for him, but our daughter to see us fighting for him as well, because she's seen it, trickle into other things as well.
Her daughter has actually written pieces on their blog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she does. Yeah,
they're amazing.
Yeah, she's written some.
I have to post them on this so others will have the link to those.
Yeah,
okay, sure.
Isn't there something truly, truly just impeccable about the siblings of those with disabilities?
Mm-hmm.
They will definitely have such a positive impact on the world. So definitely have to look out for the dynamite of the siblings, because they're coming through whether you like it or not. So
yeah.
Courtney, let us know your opinion on that.
I definitely hope that, one day Graham can take over in advocating for himself. He's an only child, and, I always think ahead and what's going to happen to him when we're not here? Is he going to be able to take care of himself? And so forth. So it's definitely something that I want him to, to be able to do. I advocate for my brother still. I mean, he's 22 years old, and I wrote a blog, I don't know how long ago it was, but it talked about, he was mainstream because of course he didn't get his diagnosis, early enough, and so he was mainstream all through school. He went to college, got his associate's degree, has a job, drives, but it's a part-time job, and it's not in his degree field because he hasn't been given an opportunity to advance into that field. No one's willing to give him a chance right now in that, and I'm just like, why? He put in the work. Give him a chance. Let him prove to you he can do it. If he can't, he can't. I mean, but he's so content with where he's at, because that's where he's had to be his whole life. He's just had to be content with what's been allowed for him to have. And I don't want that for him. I don't want that for anybody. I don't want it for Graham. I want Graham to be able to achieve anything he wants in his life, and so I very much hope that he sees, what I'm doing, and, as he gets older, he gets to join in more with it. It's where it's someday it's him joining me right beside me, or even taking it completely on his own and just going with it.
Lindsey, what about you?
I would like to think that women watches me advocate and hears me do it, be it therapy, be it at home. We have a feisty little 3-year-old who runs our show. She runs our lives, and she's a little bit of a snot unless it comes to Whitman. And then it's Whitman wants a cookie. Well, Whitman can tell me he wants a cookie, but can he? Yeah, he can. And she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, well, he told me he wants it. So she started like already young, like knowing that we talk about praxia, we talk about autism, we talk about epilepsy, and we talk it to it in a way that she can understand, in hopes that someday she'll be the advocate for him, that she'll step up to the plate and she'll do what needs to be done to help a little. So, I mean, she has sat in on several meetings on the other side of the couch or on my lap, and she's super advanced for 3 years old because she sat in so many therapies before COVID. So she too was immersed into speech and language, OT, all things. Her negotiation skills are top notch for a 3-year-old in ways that you will never imagine. The other night I asked her to have she could read one more book, and she handed me the Bible. And I said, pick one story from the Bible. And she goes, it's a book. You want to read the whole thing? And I'm like, okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, I like to hope and pray and think that Whitman will advocate for himself when the time is right. We try and give him the tools and set him up. He uses an iPad to speak. So if he's pointing at something, I'm like, nope, use that iPad. You got to tell me what you need, because pointing isn't always going to work for the situations that you're going to be in. Like, if I had $1 for every time the intervention specialist texted me and was like, he's just pointing, do you have any ideas? I'm like, no, I don't know your classroom. I'm really sorry about that. So, but yeah, I like to think that in the future, we are raising 2 very strong and mighty advocates. I think it's important that we talk about everything, and we talk about it at levels that they both are understanding. Like, I try not to talk above what they would understand when they're in the room, because I want Vivi to remember things like this and be like, I remember when my mom met with, I remember when I had to sit through, I remember, so hopefully we can use her negotiation skills for good, not evil, guys. I'm scared. I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm not. I'm worried.
She is a sassy little one, that's for sure.
Yeah. I guess we'll watch out for her blog post in the next couple of years and just see which directions they go.
Yeah, when she can write, I'm sure that she will have a lot to tell people.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I just really want to know, like, what you say to a parent that's scared to get started. Because we know they are. We know how intimidating it can be. We know how scary it can be. We know that you already have your hands full. We know that you are literally trying to keep another person alive, and that is hard in itself. So when you're actually trying to make, like Lindsey said, those decisions that you feel are going to last a lifetime, that's going to impact the future of the person that you love the most, what do you tell them? What do you tell them when they're scared to be an active part of their team in the IEP meeting? What do you tell them when they, are scared to call their state representative or their state senator, involving a bill that had, that is actively going to involve the services that have to do with their child? What do you tell them to let them know that their action is needed? We'll call on you, Trista. We'll call on you.
It's scary to make that first step. I was very hesitant at first myself. But with, the nudging of a couple friends, and I was reminded that if I don't start, I'll look back and if I don't do something, nothing will ever happen. If I don't try, I know for sure nothing will ever happen. So if I don't at least try, then I can't say that I didn't put my best effort into doing everything I possibly could.
Definitely. Courtney, what's your follow-up on
that? Trust your mama gut. trust your parent gut. Don't let other people, think that they know your child more than you do, because you're the parent, you know them, you know what they need. You understand them more. I definitely, and don't feel bad if you try something, and it doesn't work for your child, because everybody is different. What works for one may not work for the other. We're learning that right now ourselves with our son. He goes to school, he does OT and speech, and he's fixing to start PT again, and we were doing home ABA, and we've actually been on hold with our home ABA these past few weeks, and Graham has exploded in being vocal, not so much words, but being vocal. And his behaviors have been just, total night and day difference. And so, I sit here and I wonder, I'm like, should we be doing that? Is it too much for him? We've heard about school ABA, and so we're possibly looking at, into that, because in his days, not from sun up to sundown therapy, he gets to be a kid. And when I first found out about that, I was like, no, we're not going to do it. I want him to be able to be a kid. He goes to school and does therapy up there. I'm not going to make him do it at home. So, definitely don't feel bad if you try something, and if you feel it's not working for your child, pull it. You can always go back to it. It's not a definite, well, if you choose not to do it now, you can't ever come back to it. But definitely trust your gut, because it will lead you where you need to go. It will lead you to people to help you. When I started this, I looked out for any organizations here that could help me, and I found one, and through that one, I found several others. I found, the Community of Champions Alley. I found conferences I attend for free here in my state, where I learn about more resources and to grow. And so, it is very scary to make that first step on your own. But once you do, you'll feel so much better, because you're following your gut, and you're not just continuing. Like, I thought I was crazy at first. I remember when I left Graham's diagnosis and we got in the car, and I had that piece of paper, and I was like, I'm not crazy. I finally felt that relief of, every single time I discussed something, somebody would say, he's fine, or, he'll talk when he's ready, or, oh, that's normal. No, I followed through with what I thought. And I finally felt like I could say I'm not crazy to people. So trust it.
What about you, Lindsey?
I think what Courtney said, like, you can follow your mom gut, and I think it's important too to find your team, and that can take a few tries. We walked into our first ever speech therapy appointment. It was 3 weeks postpartum, and they told me Whitman had no cognition, and that speech therapy just wasn't for him. But Whitman is a kind of kid who just sits there quietly and like hangs out. And once he warms up to you, like, you see what he can do. And then we went into the second speech therapy, and I was scarred. Like, I didn't want to be in speech therapy. Like, I did not want to hear them tell me again that my son, because your hormones are everywhere after you've given birth. And I just knew I mentally could not handle it. And the speech therapist looked at me and she was, do you know how smart he is? And I was like, really? And I was like, the last lady down the hall just said that. But it's important to just like find your team. And it takes some time, and your team will change. Like, my favorite speech therapist decided that her calling wasn't to be a speech therapist anymore, it was to teach speech therapists. And that to me was like amazing, because she was such an amazing person. I miss her every week, but we found a different person that we added to our team, and she calls our school, like, and lets them know things, and is very open. And so I think that in your first steps, when you're trying to figure out what to do, you find a team, you find like support systems that will help you get what you think you need. And if it's a no from different ideas that you have had, try a different angle. come at it a different way. But I think that when you're first starting out, it's establishing your people. So establishing who you trust with your therapies, who you trust as a teacher, who you trust as friends. Like, it's just getting your people together so you feel complete while you're doing the things that you need to get done. So where people aren't telling you you're crazy, they're telling you you're doing a good job, even though your hair is sticking straight up, your mascara's down your cheeks, and you're not really sure what day it is, but you're getting it done for your kid.
And I think it's important. Everything about what you said is important, and it wraps up into this beautiful picture that people can understand. Finding your team, knowing that if you don't do this, that you're eventually going to regret it, because you actually have skills that are so important. And then just like you said, Courtney, like trusting yourself. And then understanding that every single person has something to give. Every single person does. One person might be better at this and one person might be better at that, but what you have is just as important and it's needed. So you may see someone that you admire that's doing great things, and they may be able to organize an event and know all these people to call to get them there. But there also has to be someone at the door to check people in. That has to happen. Every single person is important. So everyone has a role. If you can take notes, if you can pass out postcards, if you can recruit people on social media to a new page, if you can make sure that the information about a new support group is passed out to your friends, if you can create a calling tree and add 5 people that you know to it to make sure that the information, the new organization, the new supports are being, sent out. Everything is important. Everyone has something to give, and that's all advocacy. It's all advocacy. You can show up to someone's IEP meeting so they don't have to do it alone and just be there for support. That's advocacy. Everyone can be an advocate. Everyone has something that they can do right now that's important to someone else, and that's going to further the movement. And so I think that it's important to not look at other people and think, I don't have that. I'm not as educated as that person. I'm not as experienced as that person. But we could take a step back, and everybody has to start somewhere, and who you are and where you're at and what you have is needed. It's very, very needed, because we have to have everyone to make a difference.
With that, Allie, I don't have a college degree, for this type of stuff. Graham's going to be 4 next month, so we're still fairly new to all this. I never saw myself as a public speaker. And that was actually my very first way of advocating. Was our photographer, I found out, is a teacher at the university, and she teaches education classes for future educators. And she has asked me to come in, and I go in every semester and I'll speak to, different classes and, give them a parent intake of what it's like, being a parent of a child with a disability, and what our fears are of sending our child to school. That's something I never, ever, me, a public speaker, never imagined. But, I love it. I love getting out there and getting to share it. And, honestly, at first I would go in there prepared with like all these papers in front of me. And this last time I went in there with nothing, I just kind of winged it, it just kind of came out, whatever, what came out. And they'd ask me questions and I'd answer them the best I could. So, yeah, you never know what you have to offer. Don't ever put yourself down thinking that you can't do it, because you're going to surprise yourself. That's definitely the way I felt after I left there my first time speaking to her classes. I really just spoke to a bunch of classes like I did a public speaking event. So yeah, don't ever sell yourself short. You always have something to offer.
Exactly. Okay, well, I definitely want to get you guys your information. Let everyone that's viewing this segment, let us know how we can find your blog. Trista, do you want to let us know first?
Sure. I'm over on Facebook at Hurricane Heffners and also hurricaneheffners.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Courtney?
Ours is on Facebook, Guiding Graham's Way, and also our website is guidinggramsway.com.
Lindsay?
Ours is the Althaus Life on Facebook, and then the althouseLife.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure that we post these in the chat down below as soon as we get this posted and everything's up. And if you have any specific blog posts that you want, just put a link down the bottom. That way people can click on it and go right over to it. We're really thankful that you guys were here with us today. It was really important that, like I said, that we can build up and start others on their advocacy journeys, because we want to make sure that we are creating advocates from the ground up. We are just stamping out all of that intimidation that they see, whatever they're coming up with, whatever's stopping them from being an advocate. We want to put that behind them. We want to let them know that they can start right where they are. We want self-advocates, peer advocates, parent advocates to know that they're needed and they can be an advocate in their everyday life. So thank you for sharing your journeys with us, how you started, where you are now, your whys, and exactly what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Guys, catch us next time on Food for Thought Friday. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one, guys. Thanks.
Bye.